But the other tactic that the MAGA side seems to be taking, Lana, is attacking Tim Walz and his military service, which I think is just a terrible, terrible idea. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. They did this with John Kerry back in the day, and to some extent it definitely worked. And I think maybe they're trying to use that playbook again, and they're going to go after Tim Walz. We're in a different time now. We're in a time where people are already tired of Donald Trump. They are seeing him as a liar and boring and old and tired and just using the same shtick over and over and over again. But Tim Walz did address today that attack on his military service, and this is what he had to say.
These guys are even attacking me for my record of service. And I just want to say, I'm proud to have served my country, and I always will be. With my dad's encouragement, a guy who served in the Army during the Korean War, I signed up for the Army National Guard 2 days after my 17th birthday. I served for the next 24 years for the same reason all my brothers and sisters in uniform do. We love this country. Then in 2005, I felt the call of duty again, this time of being service to my country in the halls of Congress. My students inspired me to run for that office, and I was proud to make it to Washington. I was a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee and a champion of our men and women in uniform. I'm going to say it again as clearly as I can. I am damn proud of my service to this country. And I firmly believe you should never denigrate another person's service record. To anyone brave enough to put on that uniform for our great country, including my opponent, I just have a few simple words. Thank you for your service and sacrifice.
Yeah, the beauty about this this campaign, Lana, is they're not going to put up with the shit. They're done. You know, this idea that they were the party of the Patriots and they were the party of USA. Guess what I'm hearing Kamala Harris's rallies? I'm hearing USA chants. What am I hearing with Tim Walz? I'm hearing him defend the servicemen and women who fight for this country. And for anybody, especially who's the weirdo JD Vance, who was in the military as well, disparaging this man just to try to get political points for his service to the country. The guy served for 24 fucking years. You can retire after 20
years. 24 years. And they wanted him to when he lost his hearing, remember?
Right.
And what he did was masterful. And this is what's making Kamala's campaign masterful, is because he knows what Vance has said about him, right? But he doesn't go into the weeds with it.
Right.
He keeps the frame on the focus of he's denigrating military service. I'm not going to get into when I retiring before deployment.
Not justifying their,
Exactly. That is masterclass, right? Like what he did was like, and thank you for your service, motherfucker. Even though you're a motherfucker, I'm not going to get into the weeds and say, dude, you sat in an air-conditioned tent. You ain't seen any combat your damn self. Didn't even say that to him. Rose above it. And that's what they were saying. I forgot who specifically said this, but they made a good point. The problem with Biden not being able to kind of stick it to Trump was because the messaging was all wrong. The messaging was about he was a threat to democracy.
Right.
You know, when someone's a threat and they're like a monster, they look big, they're
scary,
menacing, and scary. So you continue to get so much support just because you look strong with what you're saying. But all they did was just a simple word like weird. by accident. And then the campaign just took on that and just highlights the weird things. Trump slurring his words. What's the matter, Grandpa? You up too late? Hey, you ain't been in the battleground states. What are you, sleepy? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like now he looks weak and tired, and you can't get those pictures out of your head about him. And that is the master class of what they're doing right now. It's so simple.
It is simple, and that's why it won't change. You know, that's why they'll be able to continue this throughout November. Did you ever see the movie? And this reminds me, did you ever see the movie Milk about Harvey Milk? Sean Penn.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Was in it. Well, he was the guy running for, I think it was mayor in San Francisco. He's like the first gay candidate to run. It was based on a true story. But there was always a scene in that movie that stuck with me that he was getting, you know, obviously all these death threats and awful letters. And there was a picture where somebody drew of him getting stabbed to death. And, you know, he was living with his partner there, and the partner was like, you know, look at these things that we're getting in the mail. It was in the drawer, and he pulled it out of the drawer. He says, look what we're getting in the mail. And Sean Penn or Harvey Milk takes the picture and just puts it up on the refrigerator. And he's like, what are you doing? He goes, we're putting it out in the open because now it's less scary. And this is kind of the same concept, is that when you put Donald Trump out in the open and you put JD Vance and all these clowns out in the open, they become less scary, and they become clowns now. They become, you know, this is a loser who drew a picture and felt like he needed to mail it to Harvey Milk. And they're like, nobody's coming. Put this up. Fuck this guy. We're not going to be scared because this guy draws pictures. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. Fuck this guy. We're not going to be scared of you. And you're exactly right. They're diminishing his scariness. And again, we understand if he wins, shit's going to be scary. No question about it. But it's human psychology at this point. When you get the people who are voting, they're going to look at this guy and go, this fucking guy's an idiot. He's not worth my vote. And that's the point. Right. And I'm, you know, now looking at it, Josh Shapiro is awesome. And I think Josh Shapiro has a phenomenal career ahead of him. I think the only issue now, just looking at it, Monday morning quarterbacking it, Tim Walz was 100% the absolute right choice, because he's not going to overshadow her in any way whatsoever. He is going to compliment her constantly. He could have overshadowed a bit because he's just so he's got such that presence.
Yeah, and she probably said that to him. Like, he probably knew, right? Because I was thinking,
and I hope he took it as a compliment.
Yeah, I was right. She probably said, "Man, you're meant to be number one, not number two." And I thought that when he spoke at, when they were in Philly, after he spoke that day, I'm like, if he speaks like that all the time, there's no way she could have came after him.
Yeah.
It would have been like, wah, 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 right? Like, it would have been kind of a letdown. And she's a great speaker, but he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. There's no way she could follow that act. There's no way. He's the main attraction. So
And Tim Walz, and by the way, Tim Walz brings down the house every time, but he's got that presence about him. Like, he knows he's the opening act. Like, he's fine with being the opening act. And even if he brings the house down, people are going to be so excited about now Kamala coming out instead of disappointed that he's leaving the stage.
Right. And Shapiro is just like, you just want more. Like, it's she will always have to be like 1000% A game coming out because he's so friggin' awesome. That's like following Obama, right?
That's exactly right.
How do you follow Obama?
It's just, that's the thought I was thinking. So, you know, I think they're on a great path. You know, if they win Florida, fuck. I mean, that's just going to be the greatest. Well, it doesn't. You know, we've said this before. If they win Florida, they could lose those other states. Georgia won't matter. You could certify, not certify, do whatever the fuck you want.
Same with North Carolina, right? Like, if we get North Carolina,
That's the other one. And you know what? There are a lot of people, believe it or not, saying if you're crazy if you think you're counting out Texas. Texas is becoming more and more blue as it comes. And you know, I've heard Texas being threatened over the last couple of election cycles, and they just wind up letting you down. Same thing with Florida. So the expectations aren't high, but there are at least expectations to take a look at it and just hope.
She's got the money. Like, if you have the money, I would just put the ground game in there. I don't know if that's what they're doing. Maybe they are, and they're just not talking about it. But put that ground game, that money. If you got the spare money, hey, put it
There's
there.
no question.
Florida too.
Yeah.
I know they're working on North Carolina, right? Because North Carolina is winnable.
North Carolina is winnable. Now, I'm not saying there's little chance, very little chance that she'll win Ohio, but more news coming out of Ohio. They said that Donald Trump is under 50% in Ohio. So he's dropping everywhere. And here's the thing why I feel more and more confident every day about Kamala Harris winning is that Donald Trump needs more voters than he got in 2020, and he's not getting them. He's losing them. Right. And you have a lot of even Nikki Haley voters are saying, I don't give a fuck who she endorsed. I am not voting for that guy, period. Right. It does not matter. A lot of us were voting for Nikki Haley as a protest vote to Donald Trump, not because we wanted necessarily we'd be happy with her to win, but a lot of it was a protest vote. So this idea that Nikki Haley endorsing him was a big deal, I don't think it is at all.
Yeah. She sold her soul for nothing.
Absolutely. And in fact, now she's probably really regretting it because she thought they were walking to a victory against Joe Biden. And then now this is happening, and now she's kind of fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Look what you put your freaking stake your reputation on.
Yep.
She should have been coming out with Republicans for Kamala. That's the team that she should have been on right now, because good for those dudes, and I hope more and more join them.
Yeah, absolutely.